Good evening on this Wednesday, July 11th. This is your 28storms.com tropical update, and we will begin in the Eastern Pacific once again because that is where all the activity continues to persist. And one thing you will not notice on this graphic is the presence of Daniel, and that is because Daniel has moved into the Central Pacific Hurricane Center zone of authority, and Daniel is also weakening below tropical depression status, so there's really no reason to talk much about that system any longer. But of course, we're still dealing with Hurricane Amelia, which is still a powerful 115 mile per hour Category 3 hurricane, and we've got soon to be Fabio located just to its east with a 90% chance of development. Amelia has been a relatively easy storm to forecast due to the pretty stagnant synoptic weather pattern with the ridging to the north, thus pushing the system further and further away from Mexico. And you can see that the storm is still expected to dissipate as it moves into those cooler water temperatures and drier air, much like what we saw with Daniel. For the time being, however, Amelia remains a very impressive and good-looking hurricane with a well-defined eye and nearly perfect symmetry, and we can see on the enhanced infrared that this system is still packing quite a punch with a lot of deep convection within that central dense overcast, and the regional visible imagery shows the parade of storms with the ghost of Tropical Storm Daniel now losing all of its convection, and Amelia still pushing toward the west into this drier air where we see all of this stable stratocumulus signature on satellite. And off toward the east, this is the next budding tropical cyclone, soon to be Tropical Storm Fabio within the next few days. Right now, convection is somewhat substantial, but the northern semicircle of that disturbance is somewhat limited, and we can see why on the water vapor. It looks as though there's some westerly wind shear along with some additional dry air as we inch closer to Mexico, but conditions overall should still be conducive for gradual intensification. As we've been mentioning for the better part of the past week, we still have this stable mid to upper level ridge centered over the western United States and northern Mexico, and that is why we have never been concerned about any one of these tropical cyclones ever impacting land. Meanwhile, we continue to see a totally different story in the Atlantic Basin, and the reason behind the lack of any tropical activity is we're continuing to see a lot of dry, sinking air being pushed in from the trade winds into the Caribbean and even the Gulf of Mexico, so this is not conducive for development. And in terms of vertical wind shear, nearly all of the Atlantic and Caribbean are shut down due to such shear, and even the southeast Gulf of Mexico, although it looks favorable on this graphic, the water vapor shows that we are dealing with a mid to upper level trough with an upper level low situated to the north of Cancun. The only somewhat interesting thing to note is a high amplitude tropical wave currently located near 40 degrees west longitude, and this is the 7-day GFS forecast of 850 millibar theta E temperatures, and it shows the tropical wave continuing to advance toward the west, and as it continues to move westward, it will start to enhance the shower activity across the Caribbean, and within about 7 to 8 days, it could eventually move into the southern or central Gulf of Mexico. So this could be something to watch, but as of right now, none of the dynamical models are showing any way of tropical cyclone development. And here's one final look at the remnants of Daniel as it moves westward along with the much more powerful Hurricane Amelia. And this pretty much wraps up your tropical weather update for this Wednesday evening. Check back tomorrow afternoon for another update from 28storms.com and the Hurricane Tracker app.